Welcome to the Society Pod, a podcast for entrepreneurs, marketers, and leaders. Here's your host, Jessica Yarmy.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Society Pod. My guest today is a senior financial analyst at European WAC Center, supporting franchisees with their four-wall unit economics. Prior to European WAC, she was with Pizza Hut, which is another mega franchise. All told, she's been in the franchising world since 2017. So we're going to talk franchising. We might talk finance. We might talk a little bit of entrepreneurship and being a woman in business. So welcome to the show, Jessica Thornton.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
It's amazing for you to be here. And you and I have kind of just recently met. And so I don't know your whole background. How did I do with your introduction? Are there things that I missed? How would you introduce yourself?
No, I think that was great. I mean, my latest experience recently, in my career has been all in franchising, grown to love the franchising model, and have spent a little bit of time in new store development. And in most recent years, I've been in finance and franchise finance.
And you and I met because of the Women's Franchise Network. So let's start just right in the core of what we overlap in, which is the franchise world. Did you intentionally pursue this hyper franchising career that you've had, or did you kind of trip into it?
No, I was in a place that really didn't have a lot of runway for me to continue to grow my career. And so I was really just looking for any option to get me out of the nonprofit industry that I was in before. I was looking for something more business oriented. I had, a dream of pursuing my MBA. It's kind of sexy to work at a place that everybody knows. And so that was a little bit of the appeal with Pizza Hut, but thankfully was able to have a friend connect me and get into Pizza Hut. And at that time, I didn't really see it as, a franchising business. I just thought, I'm getting into corporate America. I'm going to try something new. But, in recent years, as I've, changed roles and moved to a new company, I've come to realize that the skills I've gained in working on the corporate side of a franchised brand are very valuable, to other brands. So especially within the finance world, not everybody has an understanding or experience with that franchising model. And it does, introduce different complexities than just a company-owned brand.
I love working in big brands because you have a high number of repetitions for everything that you do. So I'm on the marketing side, so I have a high number of repetitions on local store marketing, but you have a high number of repetitions on looking at four-wall unit economics. But then you have two different industries also. So you went from restaurant into beauty. How do those repetitions differ?
So, there are some similarities. I will say, just in franchising in general, what I love about both restaurant and beauty is there's always something new to be working on. There's always someone to support in a finance role, supporting field operations and supporting our franchisees. There's always someone new that I can work with, help them improve their business. So I like those elements. I would say, the restaurant industry tends to be pretty male dominated in my experience. So that is, a little different to the beauty industry, which has historically been very open to women of color, people of diverse backgrounds. I'm finding differences in the type of people who are leaders and in the number of women that I find myself working with. So I would say, at EWC, it's been primarily female coworkers at the corporate level, whereas Pizza Hut, I was, the only woman on a team of men for a long time. But I would also say some of the key differences that I'm recognizing now may be more due to restaurant versus service industry. Beauty services have kind of this unique element of running on very skilled and often credentialed labor. I've had an opportunity to investigate kind of some different labor issues. At Pizza Hut, we might have had payroll issues or, there were things you've got to work through with labor, but it wasn't necessarily the limiting factor. Whereas with EWC, if we have not worked hard to cultivate a pipeline of wax specialists and estheticians, and if we're not partnered with beauty schools and really training up the next generation, we have a big problem because they're a huge part of our business model.
I went from Burger King as my start in restaurant franchising to Pilates and fitness. And it's a similar dynamic where the people on the service side is everything. And if you get your people correct, it's just this amazing echoing of brand and core values. And then there's so many ways you can get it wrong, where people just take their own interpretation, and the people part of it is what kind of is the downfall, I guess, of the service side. I love that about franchising, that it's so people centric. What's your like love of franchising? Like, what are the things you love most about it?
I would say I've got two big things. By far, the biggest thing is working with owner operators. At Pizza Hut, I was partnered with more of our small organization owners who owned less than 30 units. And at EWC, our smaller owners would own maybe like 3 to 5 units. But I find these people, aside from kind of the very attractive entrepreneurial spirit, I find that they are incredibly knowledgeable about their business, about the business drivers. When I was in new store development with Pizza Hut, I found that they just knew their trade areas really well. They were connected in the community. One of my favorite franchisees at Pizza Hut, I would call and talk to him about his 15 stores, and he knew the name of most of his employees. He knew how much carryout business per week they were doing. He knew when college was back in session. He was just really an expert. Working with him and working with people like him have really, really improved my business acumen. It's a different set of skills, and it's a different way of looking at things than the corporate mindset. So I feel like I've had the opportunity to cultivate both by working with some of these small owners. So that's definitely something I'm enjoying in my current role, is being a little bit more field focused. The other thing that I just love about franchising is it's really fast paced. There's always innovation. We're always looking for the next thing to do. When working with larger brands that like to test, different scenarios, there's always something interesting to investigate. From a financial perspective, lately I've been getting some really cool projects to test some new things, to understand how they're working. So that's been really fun and engaging, just to work on some new things.
The passion in franchising is unmatched. And if you're outside of the business model or outside of this industry, it's hard to understand exactly how much people care. There's just so much care across the whole business. Being on the brand side, I see so much care on the brand, but then it's interesting to hear you talk about the care of the business and the care of the employees of the franchisee's business. And they are just all very entrepreneurial individuals who have chosen to go in a franchise model, whether to have the support of the franchisor or whether it's just like love of the brand. There is still just that entrepreneurial small business owner kind of dynamic. I know you've worked on the corporate side, but I feel like you have an entrepreneurial itch too.
I do. Something that is a topic of conversation between my husband and I, and has been for several years. I think I would love to eventually get into franchising. Honestly, it could be any number of brands. There's a lot of great business models out there. I probably find myself most at home in the restaurant industry and would love to, I think of like a Modern Market or a Salad and Go, thing like that, that's really kind of breaking in with some healthy, fast options. I feel like that's a big need right now. I love that. But my Mima thinks I'm beautiful and she thinks I'm great in the beauty industry. So maybe I would stick around in the beauty industry, because I do love the med spa thing too. Very compelling. And, we're adding laser at EW, stepping into that a little bit more. And there's a ton happening there. So lots of good places to potentially, get involved and invest.
I love that you're on the field side now, because you speak as an entrepreneur. Like, you speak as if you understand the business top to bottom. Maybe your expertise is on the finance side, but you understand the operation. As you're coaching different franchise owners, where do you see franchisees go wrong? Is there a common trip up that franchise owners experience?
I think it's hard to make one statement about that. At Pizza Hut and also at EWC, there is such a diverse group of franchisees that we're working with. It ranges from your large private equity groups that might own hundreds of units down to a single unit owner operator. So I would say the smaller franchisees sometimes need more support on the financials. A lot of them are very motivated. They're asking the right questions, and they just need someone like me and the other people on my team to come alongside and explain to them, okay, this is how you can manage your P&L, how you can squeeze a little more profit out. This is where your revenue is dipping a little bit, and just kind of help them get their hands around some of those financial concepts. the bigger private equity groups, sometimes a little bit more removed from day-to-day operations, which, they each have their strengths, they each have their weaknesses. I've already kind of spoiled that I have a preference for working with the smaller owners because I just appreciate how close they are to their business. It makes my job really interesting and also easier when they can answer questions about, hey, why do you think performance is trending up? What's driving this? What could we lift and apply to other stores in our network that might help boost other center performance?
So that's an interesting call out of the difference between a small franchisee and a large franchisee. I know you've been mainly in large franchisors, but where do you see small franchisors getting tripped up?
I think probably the biggest one would be building your process and casting your vision wide enough and big enough. There are always going to be growing pains when you're moving from small to medium to large. I think those just kind of come with the territory. And frankly, sometimes you don't know what you need until you need it. But taking the time to consider, hey, is this process, is this procedure, is this vision flexible enough to grow as we grow? And consider what people resources in particular are we going to need when we add another 100 units? Or if we add 1,000 units, how are we going to support that? Because I do think that supporting franchisees is the number one priority of a franchisor. And at some point you get so large, it's really difficult to meet the needs of both the large and the small owners. So that's a struggle at any size, really.
Yeah, with the small owners, you need to be so hands-on. And then with the larger owners, you need to be so thorough and strategic and growth minded and mergers and acquisition minded. And that's an interesting call out, and it's a different game. When I look at small franchises, I'm so inspired because it's such a scrappy game when you're small, and it almost seems like everyone needs handholding both at the franchisee level and at the franchisor level. Like everyone's in it together, learning. And I call them OG owners. Like the original 25 are just in almost as employees with you. Like let's all dig in and figure this out. So it's just fascinating, the different life cycles. And it's interesting that you call out the struggles of being so big, because I think some franchisors, you think you get big and the problems go away, but you're almost exposing that there's problems that emerge as you get.
Yeah, definitely.
What would you say is special about European wax?
I am really glad you asked, because this is one of my favorite things about EWC is that our company culture and values are not just lip service. We say that we have fun while being awesome. That's one of our core tenets. And another is that we do the right thing. Not everybody does the right thing. Not every business is committed to integrity being kind of one of our key principles. But I will say, working in a company where I truly feel everyone wants to do the right thing and everyone wants to have fun while doing our very best, it kind of neutralizes a lot of this kind of corporate politics that's totally unnecessary, in my opinion. And it just helps you kind of believe the best in others, work well together, and just at the end of the day, no matter what happened in this meeting or in that email, everyone's committed to doing their best and to doing the right thing. And so if you can have faith in that, I think it gets you through those harder days.
Within the European Wax franchisee community, you're obviously a beauty brand. What is the mix of female franchise owners, female team, or is it still a male dominated space?
It's hard to put an actual number on that because we have so many kind of partial owners that are working together. I will say that I see women primarily as the face of the business. And there are a lot of women who are kind of our franchisee of record, you might say, the ones who are truly operating the business, and they're partial owners and they have some other partners backing them. They're essentially running the business. And then I'd also say within the corporate setting, we have a lot of women in leadership. Our senior leadership is over half female. And then our corporate owned centers are 100% female led at the manager level. we have, I think it's 95% of our network-wide employees at the corporate and the field level are women. So huge representation, still pretty solid representation at the leadership levels too. I think that makes a difference. Women work relationally. There are some different competencies that women can leverage in business. And so I think it just creates a slightly different environment when it's primarily women leading the business.
The relationship competencies, I think, is huge in franchising. The latest statistic I saw is only 30% of franchises are owned by women, and that's an all-in number. So even including some of the smaller franchises that maybe function more like licenses. But I think there's just so much opportunity to get more women into franchising. And it almost seems like it should be a female dominated space because of how relationship driven and collaboration driven it is. If you had a magic wand, how do you solve that problem with me?
That's a tough one because I think one of the main reasons that women aren't as present in franchising is it's scientifically proven we're more risk averse than men are. Striking off on your own, launching a business, even with a great support network and a solid business model from a healthy brand, is still a risk. And for a lot of women, myself included, because you and I've talked about this before, I have let fear hold me back sometimes in this area because I don't want to blow it. I think there's this idea that we take this risk, we blow it, and then we're done. But really, if you consider what entrepreneurs go through, they may try many times before they have a successful business. I think it's helping women to feel supported in a franchised business, getting them comfortable with core value. If you're not comfortable with the core values of the corporate office or of the brand, then don't invest your money there. Go with people that you know are going to support you, make you feel confident taking the risk. I think we just need a little bit more of a safety net, and then we can take those risks a little more willingly.
I could see from an outside perspective, looking into the franchising world, how it seems risky. But then I also see, being an entrepreneur myself right now, the statistics around entrepreneurship and starting your own business on your own, 90% of them fail. I think it's an interesting middle ground opportunity where it doesn't have to be black and white of keep your 9 to 5 or be a stay-at-home mom. It's like a gray area opportunity where it's scratch the entrepreneurial itch, scratch the businesswoman itch, but then also have the support of the franchisor, but have control over your calendar. So you're working as an entrepreneur, but you still have a lot of autonomy. You still have a lot of the pieces that would almost de-risk it. So in a way, it seems de-risked over being completely on your own. I try to talk about women in franchising a lot just because I think it's such a natural fit for us as collaborators, as relationship builders, as leaders to sit in this business model. I think the missing piece has been education. As you and I connect through the Women in Franchising group in Dallas, our group is still women who have been in franchising. How do we bring more women in from the outside who have never even thought about franchising or working in a franchisor? There's so much greenfield there to spread information about the franchising business model. So either it encourages or inspires women to explore it as entrepreneurs or explore it as employees of the franchisor, because I think there's just so much there that overlaps. I know you get involved in your women in leadership groups. Talk to me about where you see opportunities for women leaders to either come up in franchising or come up as just female leaders in general.
So I was on the Women in Leadership and Learning employee resource group at Pizza Hut, and a portion that I worked on was career advancement for women and also at one point external partnerships. And I do think that is a piece of the puzzle that could be very helpful for women. I haven't always done a great job leveraging my network and creating those points of connection. And that's why I was so excited when you reached out out to me because I think as women, we need to help create these opportunities to highlight what other women are doing, particularly in franchising. And so that's why I love that you're bringing in people, you're highlighting different perspectives, different points of view on these things. So I think leveraging those external partnerships is a great opportunity for women. To what you said before about women in franchising and it being kind of like a de-risked situation, I think we have an opportunity there to get the word out. There are some very attractive things about franchising. The initial investments are usually not massive compared to, starting your own business from scratch. It often provides the schedule flexibility that women who are moms would like to have. And so I think there are opportunities there to bring other women in and then even further to elevate them by giving them opportunities, platforms like this to speak about what's important to them and create conversations where we can all talk through ideas, we can improve each other. And that's another thing I love about the Women's Franchising Network events is just getting to go talk to people. I love to talk about the business that I work for and businesses I have worked for. I'd love to understand, like, hey, what are you working on? What are you seeing in the market? What are your franchisees' struggles right now? How are you helping? I think all of those opportunities are good ways for us to help each other improve.
In our Women's Franchise Network, the Pizza Hut alumni, it is huge. And especially here, we're both in Dallas. It's amazing how many of you there are and how you've all either are still there or like have gone on to another franchise. Like it's always within franchising. And it's so interesting. And it maybe speaks volumes about the Pizza Hut organization that it has created such a foundation of learning. Some of the Pizza Hut employees were doing some sort of crash course on franchising.
I think it was University of Louisville, and it is a franchising boot camp actually that I think was incepted as a way to bring in maybe some non-traditional franchise candidates, getting people maybe right out of college, giving them a 6-week boot camp. I mean, because that's the thing that's so great about franchising is it's open to people from diverse backgrounds. You don't have to have an MBA to do this. You don't even have to have a bachelor's degree. Finding women, minorities, people who maybe don't have a college degree, they're also great candidates for franchising. And if the business model works, anyone should be able to run one unit and make a living running one unit, in my opinion. That was an attempt to kind of support and build a pipeline of eager franchisees and people who are well-trained in franchising despite various backgrounds.
I'm so passionate about bringing younger people into the franchising game because I'm not academically gifted, maybe street smart gifted, not as much book smart gifted. And I just feel like entrepreneurship and maybe specifically franchising is such a natural step for someone who graduates from school and has a year or two of working experience and hasn't found it like click into place yet. Like for somebody to just lean in and try to scratch that entrepreneurial itch through the support of a franchisor. So I'm so fascinated by everything that Pizza Hut's doing and European WACs. I think there's just like so much that the big brands blaze that trail and have the resources to raise up the young talent, where smaller brands really a little bit more limited with what they can do and who they can bring in and need the like proven multi-unit operators. I want to kind of dig a little bit more into your career and how you got to where you are. Have there been mentors along the way for you that have pulled you through these two massive franchisor systems?
Yes, I've had lots of mentors. I've had a couple of maybe longer mentoring relationships. And honestly, by and large, I've had great bosses, people who really cared about me and helping me further my career. Once you've earned a seat at the table, kind of having someone who can drop your name and, a sponsor, we call it in the corporate world, someone who's really pushing for you is important. And I have had several of those. I was very fortunate, my first role at Pizza Hut, I actually reported to a combination of people in a more administrative role. And those bosses really were instrumental in leveraging me into, my analyst role, where I first started working with franchisees and on new store development. A lot of it was kind of self-motivated as well. I mentioned I had always had a dream of getting my MBA. And so another great boss at that point, when I decided to get my MBA, he suggested, hey, maybe it would be a great idea for you to move over to our finance finance team, get some experience there that will go along with your MBA, which really is kind of groundbreaking to me because my degree's in theology with a minor in music. So I was here at Pizza Hut doing analyst work, and he felt that I could make a transition into finance. And in retrospect, it was challenging, so I appreciate that he had faith in me to move from something that had a little bit of a financial and data analytics element into finance. When I got that MBA, and then when I moved to EWC, solidified even more that, hey, another company will actually hire me to do a finance role. I think I bring some other things to the table, on collaboration and cross-functional work and communication that go alongside those finance skills that make me a little bit of a unique person, to have in a finance team. But I love playing that role, and I feel like I got there through a lot of hard work, a lot of intentionality, and then a lot of people who really kind of supported me along the way and believed in me to make some of these big career moves.
You have made big career moves, not just jumping from Pizza Hut to European WAC. How many roles did you have at Pizza Hut? 4 or 5? Like, how did you move up the ranks at that organization? Was it somebody pulling you through? Was it you really pushing on different opportunities? How do you recommend people navigate or pursue a ladder climb when they're in a big organization like that?
I did have some great moves. It's always kind of hit and miss. Sometimes there's a timing element. No one likes to hear it's hard to control. About 9 months after I started my administrative role at Pizza Hut, a very key person, very integral to the team, who'd been with the company a very long time, was retiring. I was pretty vocal about I'm the right fit, and thankfully at that time they agreed. So I kind of lucked out on that one to get out of an administrative role and into a more functional role. And from there it was just a matter of over delivering, continuing to pick up skills. And I would also say that's another kind of critical piece. I don't remember who said it to me along the way, but I've really taken it to heart that consider your next role or your career path in terms of where you can get the skills that you need to do the thing you want to do. So I say in my future career, I would love to be a chief of staff running strategy someday. So I will take any role. If it's a lateral, if it's a promotion, I'll consider that. But really what I'm considering first and foremost, is this giving me new skills that are going to turn me into a great candidate for a chief of staff someday? So I think that takes a little bit of the pressure off climb the ranks. Quickly, I've not climbed the ranks as quickly as I wanted to, but I do feel like I'm sitting in a great place of having a very unique combination of skills that I'm learning to leverage and I'm learning to highlight. I've been in finance, but these are the other things about me that I can bring to the table that not everybody in finance has, or not everybody in franchising has. It's been kind of considering how can I get where I'm trying to go and just take the labels off a little bit. Even though I may not be at a level that I thought I would be at this time, I have a lot more skills. I feel a lot more well-rounded and a very comprehensive grasp of the business, which I think is key to doing anything in strategy or leadership.
What are you most proud of in your career so far?
My flexibility and adaptability. It's been a long journey from 10 years as an executive assistant to, support roles, analyst roles, new store development, finance, MBA. And now I am loving working cross-functionally. I work with our operations and development leaders at EWC and getting to kind of be the finance person that is the go-to for 2 of our core functions, operations and business. I'm loving that. It's interesting work. It allows me to really shine on some of my communication skills and getting alignment and supporting business decisions. So I think over the years, I've learned to be very adaptable. And I would say that's probably one of my greatest strengths today.
And I know you pursued the MBA, which is obviously a big time commitment. So you're obviously committed to your own growth and learning. Now that you're through that program, how do you structure your ongoing learning right now?
Right now, I am in a little bit of a lull on formal training. Of course, there's always that LinkedIn in the back of my mind, what could I be doing? I have focused more on reading some things. One of the best things I've read recently that I do continue to go back to it's called The First 90 Days. And I read it before I started this new role, how to make a really quick impact and how to kind of come out of the gate as a rock star. I have also read recently, and another one I keep revisiting is How to Think Like a Rocket Scientist, which really challenged me, being kind of a type A personality, to get out of the box. But I honestly think my best learnings and my best kind of education, I guess, comes from meeting with groups of my peers from my past, from my present. There's a group of us from Pizza Hut who still get together for lunch occasionally, and I always look forward to the conversation because we're all in different places now. Almost none of us are left at Pizza Hut. We're all doing big things, and I love to hear like, hey, how are you tackling supporting small franchisees? How are you bringing in diverse franchisees? Kind of understanding what they're working on, talking about their businesses. Not only is it super fun and great way to connect, but I think it also sharpens all of us.
It's so hard to carve out the time to do those networking things because it's extra. It's above and beyond what you're doing in your day. And I get done with my work day, and I'm like, the last thing I want to do is jump into traffic and go meet somebody for drinks. Yet those are the things that really start to make a difference, the relationships that you have, especially in the franchising game, because it's so relationship driven. So we talked about your proudest moment. Give me the opposite side of that coin. Has there been a time when you've been on a low and you've really had to create or orchestrate a comeback season? Where was that, and how did you get yourself out of the mud?
The one that comes to mind is kind of between my last role before Pizza Hut and Pizza Hut. So I was in the nonprofit industry. I was working at a place where I had kind of maxed out on what they were going to let me do when I was 30 or 31. And to me, it didn't feel very good to be in a place where I felt like I was killing it and there were no promotion opportunities. Despite asking for, hey, can I have a development plan? Can I work toward my MBA while I'm here with this organization? And the answer was, we don't really do that here. So that was a hard time for me because it's hard to continue over delivering and being an overachiever when you know there's nothing else coming for you. At 30, 31, I knew I didn't want to spend the rest of my career in that role. So that was when I decided it was time to leave. And honestly, I probably couldn't leave fast enough at that point because it's really hard when you have that kind of resentment building, when you feel unrecognized, overlooked. So getting out of there and moving to Pizza Hut, where I felt like I was contributing in ways that were really recognized and appreciated by the team, was huge. I mean, it just boosted my morale. And I honestly, at that point, I've been an executive assistant for 10 years. I wasn't sure if I could work in corporate America. I didn't know if I was going to screw it up. So having that opportunity to come in and then 9 months later get promoted for me was huge. In hindsight, I feel like I was kind of small peanuts, but it was pretty formative for me to kind of grow a level of confidence with my capabilities.
I keep on coming back to the Pizza Hut example because I recently talked with January Swiderski, and she's Pizza Hut background. And I think she started in a similar role where she was an executive assistant and just navigated it. I think sometimes being in a small organization now, there's benefits to a small organization and then there's benefits to a big organization. And sometimes the learning opportunities associated with a big organization and having a career development plan and having multiple mentors with different perspectives. It's just a great learning environment. And then you pick up all those learnings and then you can go small or you can go big. You can kind of go in a number of directions after that point. So kudos to you for orchestrating that comeback season. And you've obviously ran with it since that point. What are you working on right now?
I'm actually loving my role at EWC right now. And as we mentioned before, I'm focused on what we were calling field finance, which is supporting our franchisees with four-wall economics, understanding how profitability is trending, maybe by region, all those kinds of data insights that we need to kind of move the needle and make sure our franchisees are continuing to make money. I love getting to keep the finance stuff, but also work with the franchisees. There are not that many roles in a corporate setting that are finance, but also kind of externally focused. So investor relations is another one, which hasn't really been in my wheelhouse. It's not really something I'm pursuing, but there just aren't that many roles that kind of hybridize the field and the corporate within finance. So I love that and getting to work on projects like understand if we're introducing a new service queue or a new product, or, I'm working with, our development team on understanding just lots of different areas of new store development. That's what I truly appreciate about what I'm doing now is really, really impacting business decisions, getting to elevate my insights to executives who use them to make critical decisions. So I really feel like I'm doing work that is needed and is supportive to the business. I would say at this point in time, I would love to strengthen my network. I'm obviously not in a hurry to leave my current role, and I love EWC, but who knows what's in the future. Like we said, I'd love to run a franchise at some point in the future. And so there are some pieces of that I'm not yet equipped to do. I've got the finance, I've got the development piece, probably need a little help on operations and marketing. And so, just continuing to network and build credibility with people who do different areas of franchising than I do would be really helpful to me.
Okay, you heard that. Anybody who's in the franchising world, connect with Jessica on LinkedIn.
I love to see what everyone's posted and see what they're working on and what companies they work for.
And is there anything that's top of your mind that we haven't yet covered? Is there anything that you're focused on right now that you want to layer into the conversation?
One thing we didn't talk about specifically, but I do think is really key and something that women do well, is the opportunity to mentor the next generation of leaders. So I think women are particularly good at this, but one of the things that's really attractive to me about running my own business, a Salad and Go or Chick-fil-A or whatever, is the opportunity to bring in younger people to work with and to help them understand this is how you work. People who may have never had a job before, but to understand, hey, this is how we save money on COGS and take home more profit. This is how we delight our guests and get them to want to come back. I think that opportunity to kind of train and pass on your knowledge and your passion to the next generation is a really awesome thing about franchising. And I try to do that now, but I hope that in the future, I'll have an opportunity to really continue pouring into those who are coming up behind me.
You should start a weekly class on this, not just for franchisees, but for small business owners in general, because I think it's such a need. I end up getting to the end of the year and it's tax season and I scramble and I'm like, oh, I don't have any of this organized. Well, I will look out for your classes and your learnings, and I will definitely dial in when you decide to go down that path.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that prompt, a little kick in the butt to get me started, That's what I need.
Exactly. All right. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing all of your expertise in franchising, in finance, in ongoing continuing education. You are a gem in the franchising industry.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed the conversation. As always, just love to chat business and provide value wherever I can.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Society Pod.